Forget the comfort zone. Ferrari's about to learn what sick really means, and it starts at the steering rack. This isn't about engines or paint jobs. It's about control, feel, and the one part of the car that links the driver's instinct to the machine, the steering. For years, Ferrari built cars to be smooth, stable, and predictable. They prioritized comfort and control, and their drivers trusted that. Until Lewis Hamilton walked in. He didn't just bring 7 titles. He brought questions, expectations, and telemetry. Real numbers. Hamilton didn't complain. He calculated. Within a few laps, he felt something wasn't right. Not a failure, but a subtle disconnect. A delay between steering input and response. Ferrari called it fine-tuning. Hamilton called it a flaw, and instead of arguing, he showed them the data. Beneath all that tradition and polish, Hamilton found a sickness. Not in the hardware, but in the assumptions. Not broken, distorted. A baseline that had gone unchallenged. Ferrari's pride, a steering setup designed around their lead driver, suddenly looked outdated. Hamilton wasn't there to adapt. He was there to disrupt. Leclerc didn't realize his steering was compromised, but Hamilton saw it in under 20 laps. What Charles had grown used to, Lewis rejected immediately. The steering felt dulled, softened, filtered, manageable, but not precise. Ferrari had engineered for predictability, not precision. That made sense when stability was the goal. But Hamilton doesn't chase comfort. He chases connection. And to him, connection means truth. Direct, immediate feedback between hand and tyre. No delay, no filters. He didn't ask for tweaks. He wanted a full override of the steering logic, the brain of the system. Ferrari treated it as sacred. Hamilton saw it as the root of the problem. Because when you're racing at the edge, every microsecond counts. He wasn't there to adjust around a flaw. He was there to remove it. You don't argue with torque traces. You follow them. And when the numbers came in, they told the story. Leclerc's telemetry showed tiny delays in mid-speed corners, slight hesitations, frequent corrections. Not enough to crash a car, but enough to lose the edge. And no one had questioned it. Until now, Hamilton's override removed the filters. One-to-one input. Pure torque mapping. The difference was immediate. Test drivers said it felt too aggressive, not like a Ferrari. But the sim doesn't care about reputation. It only measures performance. With Hamilton's spec, correction rates dropped, lap-to-lap consistency improved, and the dead zone, the numb patch in steering response, was almost gone. The car didn't just feel different, it performed different, and Ferrari's internal alarm had quietly gone off. The term sick didn't come from outsiders, it came from inside Maranello. One engineer, without sarcasm, described Leclerc's steering setup as compensated illness. Filters and dampers had been covering for a deeper problem. Too much assistance. Too little truth. The car wasn't broken. It was overprotected. Hamilton's override pulled off the mask. It exposed how the system had been compensating for years. One mechanic put it simply, if you need software to drive straight, the car's not healthy. And once that truth was seen, it couldn't be unseen. Leclerc had adapted to it lap after lap. Hamilton saw it instantly, because his system didn't allow anything to hide. A quiet meeting was called. No cameras, no press. Just Hamilton, the core engineering team, and the data. He opened the telemetry, steering input versus response. The delay wasn't dramatic, but it was enough to matter. Hamilton didn't raise his voice. He asked one question. Would you race with this much delay between your hands and the car? No one answered. The silence said enough. Then he followed with the line that forced action. I can adjust, but if I adjust to your flaw and we lose, it's not my name on the problem. It wasn't defiance, it was accountability. Fred Vasseur sat quietly, then nodded. Hamilton's override would run in FP1. It wasn't just a setup change, it was a power shift. From that moment, the garage started splitting, not in anger, but in silence. Adami's team began running 2 steering maps, the old one for Leclerc, the new one for Hamilton. 2 setups, 2 philosophies, quiet but deliberate. Charles felt the shift. His simulator times were no longer safe. Hamilton's laps were tighter, more efficient. Engineers noticed. Conversations moved. Chat threads filled with overlay comparisons, and in them a recurring sentence. "We've been masking flaws for years." Inside the simulator room, it became undeniable. One technician, speaking off record, confirmed that Leclerc's input in Sector 2 needed almost twice the micro-corrections to stay online. That wasn't racing, that was compensation. Hamilton's traces told a different story. Clean arcs, minimal correction, sharper exits. Ferrari had to introduce a new metric to make sense of it: response delta consistency. It measured how much a driver needed to adjust after each input. Hamilton's stayed steady. Leclerc's bounced. This was no longer about comfort. It was about efficiency, stability, performance. The baseline Ferrari had trusted for years now looked flawed, not theoretically, measurably. By the time they arrived at Spa, the energy had changed. This wasn't just another race. It was a referendum. Spa wasn't about position. It was about proof. 2 drivers, 2 setups, 1 factory divided. Track walk day brought an unusual moment. Hamilton and Leclerc side by side. One engineer overheard Hamilton say just one line: "You feel it or you don't." Leclerc didn't reply. He just watched Hamilton's hands as they motioned, calm, certain. That night, Leclerc doubled his simulator time. No one said why, but everyone knew. Back in the garage, the hierarchy was shifting. Hamilton's requests were now processed instantly. No more back and forth. The data had earned him that. Leclerc saw it. His own changes started taking longer, not blocked, just slowed. One engineer summed it up: "We're pivoting around Lewis now." Not because of politics, because of performance. Ferrari's old philosophy, proud, structured, legacy first, was now staring down pure data. Hamilton's override wasn't a theory. It was showing results. If he beat Charles at Spa, the myth of Ferrari's way being the only way would break. Inside the factory, early sketches were being drawn. Quiet planning for new steering logic. Not officially, but seriously. And at the centre of it was Hamilton's feedback, his style, his input. The team wasn't just reacting, they were evolving and building around him. Then came the leak, a graph, 2 torque traces, one softened and delayed, the other sharp and clean. No names, but it didn't matter. Everyone knew. The soft trace, Leclerc's. The sharp one, Hamilton's. The image didn't go public. It didn't need to. It moved internally, quietly. Engineers stopped debating. They started adapting. Even the mechanics began tweaking processes, aligning with the new data. It wasn't mutiny, it was survival. Once they saw that curve, they couldn't ignore what it meant. With hours to go before Spa, Leclerc scheduled one final sim session. It wasn't in the standard logs. Some parameters were masked, likely to match Hamilton's data without admitting it. He wasn't chasing ego. He was searching for clarity. He needed to know if Hamilton's way really was better. Inside Ferrari, the internal conversation had changed. Was this a revolution or a reaction? Some thought they were abandoning years of philosophy too fast. Others felt they'd ignored the truth for too long. Either way, this wasn't about setup anymore. It was about identity. Fred Vasseur now faced a decision that went beyond hardware. 2 philosophies, 2 directions. Only one could define the future. Ferrari couldn't build 2 truths. As the lights approached at Spa, the mood was still. Everyone knew what was at stake. One car carried Ferrari's legacy, refined, comfortable, safe. The other carried a new idea, raw, responsive, uncompromising. The telemetry didn't lie. The performance didn't lie. Only one idea would win. And when the cars rolled out, it wasn't just 2 drivers lining up. It was 2 futures. Because if Hamilton wins with his steering, Ferrari doesn't just lose a race. They lose their way back to what they used to believe. Sometimes, a steering wheel doesn't just turn the car, it turns the factory. If you're ready for the real data war, subscribe.